Manchester United lost 4-3 to Tottenham Hotspur despite maintaining control for large spells of the game. Let's break down some of the teething problems this United side are having under Ruben Amorim from an in-possession perspective. So first half we had this really aggressive approach from Tottenham in that their front three of Kulusevski, Solanke and Son would almost go man for man on the back three of Martinez, Lindelof and Yoro, and would afford very little time on the ball. And we often seen scenarios where Martinez would go back into the goalkeeper and Solanke would kind of jump Lindelof, keep him in his shadow, and we would see that really aggressive approach from Son and Kulusevski to stop Yoro and Martinez getting on the ball and then wide centre-back positions. But what this allowed was, it allowed space for Dalot and Mazraoui, and we often seen direct balls into there from the goalkeeper. Now it left Tottenham with a predicament in that Spence and Porro would have to go out and press, but then that left Tottenham 3v3 or 4v3 on the back line. And we've seen this scenario numerous times in that United would end up getting the ball out to Mazraoui and Dalot, and then Spence would kind of get there, but having been 50-50 in between Antony and Mazraoui, it afforded Mazraoui that little bit of time and space on the ball to get his head up and look and play forwards. Archie Gray would come across, Højlund would be marked by Dragswin, and Fernandes on the opposite side would be tracked by Porro, and it left Dalot free again on that opposite side. Now we've seen so many occasions where we will get Mazraoui on the ball in these sort of areas, and through a lack of quality in playing forwards or through a lack of movement from the forward players, this would often break down. But we've seen this theme throughout where the fullbacks would be afforded space, but we see an even greater example higher up the field where the wide centre-backs end up finding Mazraoui. Mazraoui's got that little bit of space. Anthony actually makes a good run to drag Archie Gray out, and we can see that little bit of space open up. But as we can see on the visual on screen that I'm showing now, we've got Højlund pointing and wanting to make that run in behind when realistically the space is to come into feet. Can he come into feet? Can he get that ball in there and then bring Antony in around the corner? Or it might be a case of Mazraoui goes around and plays that 1-2. These really good opportunities and really good moments in the game actually seem to get away from us a little bit. But it was a consistent theme in that Mazraoui on the right side and Dalot on that left side got so much space, and it was often the out ball for United, and it was a case of we got into these really good spaces and we just lacked that little bit of quality. But the positives are that we are seeing these patterns that we've seen at Amorim Sporting, particularly against Tottenham. We've seen the fullbacks getting a lot of space, and we're seeing that at Amorim Sporting where the fullbacks will get space and then find forward passes, either into the inside forwards. But there's a really, really good example here of something we've seen so often at Sporting, and it was that the fullbacks ended up getting on the ball into deeper areas, and then the inside forward attached to the centre-back. And I actually highlighted this in another video. I'll show the visualisation on screen now, where the inside forward's positioning is so key because it kind of attracts that centre-back, and it allows a bit of space for Højlund to go and make them runs and the balls from the fullbacks to go directly. And these are scenarios where we're seeing Victor Gyökeres thriving. We would see Trincao Goncalves dropping into them spaces and bringing somebody out, and then balls in behind into them channels for Gyökeres to run. And I just think at the moment we're not kind of seeing that quality from a United centre-forward. Højlund is probably the closest profile we have to Victor Gyökeres, but at the moment it just doesn't seem to be working. Having said that, the movements and the setup and the structure and the patterns that we are seeing from this United side are very, very reminiscent to what we've seen at Amorim Sporting and what Amorim had success with. And I think through patience and through changes of personnel, we've absolutely got a side that can be structured and create problems for oppositions through these patterns of playing, through these movements, because we are seeing them. I think, again, it comes down to we are breaking down through technical problems or through poor decision making. Now, the introduction of Diallo and Garnacho actually brought a bit more life and energy to United's forward players. We started seeing more half-space runs, which became very useful for United. We would see Mazraoui receive the ball, again Spence would go out, but we started seeing these penetrating half-space runs from Diallo to get into these spaces and drag Archie Gray, the centre-back, out of position, and allow United to be a bit more creative in the final third. We've seen it on the opposite side, where we would see Dalot receive the ball in a little bit of space, Porro would be tight, and Garnacho would make them runs. But again, the issue would come for United in poor decision-making, particularly from Dalot on the left-hand side. We would see many occasions of Garnacho making them half-space runs, and Dalot will come back inside and look to combine with Fernandes or Mainu or back into Martinez. But the patterns are definitely there for United and are emerging, and we've seen some really, really good examples. Now, there's a really good moment in the game where you can see the teething problems United having, and you can see the difference between a well-established side of Tottenham under Ange Postecoglou and that of the Man United players under Amrim, where we've seen two very similar moments. Here, we've got Dalot on the ball, and there's two opportunities for Garnacho. We can either make that half-space run, and Dalot can slip him in, or you can allow Dalot to drive inside, and you can get round the outside and essentially work that 2v1 against Porro. Unfortunately, we see neither. We see Dalot allowed to play 1v1 against Porro. Garnacho stays out of the play completely, and it's them movements and the intensity in which you make them movements which can be the difference. Because if we now look at the comparison from the Tottenham goal, is that intense movement from Maddison to get around and create that 2v1, and then he gets a slip pass on the inside, and Tottenham end up going to score. And you can only think that over time United will get better at this, where their movements look a bit more fluid, and it'll be half space runs, and it'll be instinctive to go and play it in there, or it'll be a case of we recognise Dalot's 1v1 with the fullback, can the inside forward get around and make that overlap? But at the moment, United are having them teething problems. So although we're seeing a really good structure and patterns emerging, I think the difficulty that we're currently having with this group of United players is that there are 5, 6, 7 of these players that aren't good enough to play in the Manchester United side, and that's the top and bottom of it. You can look through the many scenarios throughout this analysis where United are in really, really good positions, and just through a lack of technical quality or a lack of game IQ or understanding, the attack breaks down. So although we're seeing a lot of frustration based on the results, I think the performances and the positive signs are there. 2 or 3 transfer windows down the line, this United team will look a lot more fluid, a lot more like Amrim's side. He'll have profiles in positions that match and align with what he wants. And I think that's when we're going to see the best of this United side. At the moment, there's going to be teething problems. He's trying to find the best position for many players. There's going to be natural teething problems in this United side, but I think the early signs are there that this is the most structured and disciplined United side we've seen, possibly post-Fergie. And I think the common consensus is that let's stick with Amorim. Let's give him 2 or 3 transfer windows, get his own place through the door, and let's see what difference that makes to this United side. I think it'll make a huge difference. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe for more tactical breakdowns.